outcome of this distorted state of the human intellect. And if it is not remedied, it would destroy the race. Our evolution will go wrong and result in the annihilation of the race if we do not provide the right environment for the whole of the race. The facilities and the amenities provided by science, the leisure now which every individual can command, the television, radio, reading of papers in the morning, study of books, discussions, all these are tending to accelerate the process of evolution. This has happened in all the civilizations of the past. When, after conquests, they had leisure and they had ample food for their mental development, books and study and discussions, the evolutionary processes were accelerated. But since they did not change the environment to suit the processes, degeneration and decadence was the result. The same thing is happening before our eyes, before the eyes of the learned and the scholars. But no one seems to care for it. Mankind, especially the advanced sections of mankind, who have now every facility and enough to eat, enough to wear, by a wrong mode of life, are creating an environment in which the evolutionary processes can go wrong and are going wrong. The aim of every political system and the social system should be to make man free of worries, of threats, of overactivity, so that he can lead a healthy, natural life with leisure, recreation, food and clothing. But instead of doing this, the governments are bent on maintaining their domination, maintaining their military power, maintaining their wealth, which all is against the evolution of mankind, which all is against the evolution of the brain. We see in the inspired directions, in the spiritual lore of mankind, that man has to live not in a luxurious way, but with moderation. This is the teaching of Christ, this is the teaching of Buddha, this is the teaching of Muhammad, this is the teaching of the Indian seers. A moderate way, and to treat his neighbor as himself. What mankind is doing at present is creating divisions and blocks, each armed to the teeth and ready to fight each other at the smallest provocation. In such circumstances, how can evolution go on in a healthy way? So evolution is being distorted, and abortive and abnormal cases will become more and more in evidence in the years to come. The bloodshed in the 20th century, the massacres, the terrible tortures are also due to this fact, because many of the dictators and the rulers who caused these massacres and bloodshed were distorted products of a misdirected evolutionary process. What I am saying goes deep into the levels of human life. What I assert is that science has no knowledge at the moment of the subtle forces working in man, that unless the laws of these subtle forces are obeyed and man is allowed an opportunity to evolve in a healthy way, the race would destroy itself. It would create such conditions that more than evolution, destruction will be before it. And the present situation is a direct corroboration of what I say. Therefore, it is necessary for any future government of the world to take the evolutionary progress of the race or of the nation into consideration. Each individual has to have liberty, enough to eat, his basic needs to be satisfied. There is not going to be a disproportionate distribution of wealth or the assets of the earth, for two reasons. Overabundance is the cause of degeneration. It does not allow the mind or the body to function in a healthy way. It is unnatural. Even in animals, even in rats, it creates chaotic conditions, and it creates chaotic conditions in human beings also. Every nation that grew luxurious at a certain period of its rise then fell to the ground, never to rise again. The same will happen to the world today. Science is here against a dead wall. It is not able to understand the evolutionary progress of mankind. For this, we have to go back to the inspired material of the great prophets who have given us directions how mankind is to live. Therefore, our political systems will have to conform to the evolutionary needs if mankind is to survive. If they do not conform, then there will occur natural calamities, wars, and revolutions to force the political powers to adhere to those laws, to those conditions by which evolution becomes easier and healthier. If you go through the history of mankind for the past 3,000 years, you will find that every race rose to a certain height and then collapsed. You will find that when there was tyranny or when there were conditions of suppression or conditions of terror, revolutions broke out in which thousands, even hundreds of thousands were killed. These revolutions are engineered by the evolutionary power of the race. They come through the collective consciousness. For instance, in the Russian and French Revolution, we see a certain type of men came into prominence, ruthless men. They had great power of eloquence. They had great influence over their followers. And then a whole reign of terror was created in which thousands, hundreds of thousands, and even millions were massacred. This is revolution comes into being when the evolutionary processes are frustrated, thwarted. They are not allowed to proceed. At that time, a revolution or a war occurs. The situation has developed now. There is the present way of life, especially in the West, is unnatural and anti-evolutionary. It is also anti-evolutionary in the poorer countries because their want is leading to modes of life which are not favorable to evolution. The net result of all these conditions would be either natural calamities or a global war or revolutions or all things combined together to change the present environment. The research on Kundalini will make future revolutions impossible because Science will come to know to what state the average human mind has arrived and what kind of social and political environment will suit it now. So what I am saying is intimately connected with our political and social life. Social and political lives of mankind have also to be progressive, but the progress made in the past has been often wrought by bloodshed. We changed monarchy into democracy or the autocratic rule into popular governments with bloodshed. This change should have occurred through reason, through investigation, through research. Why at a certain time people are tired of a certain form of government and a revolution starts to occur? It is because the evolution is obstructed, and that obstruction creates people and brings forth leaders, brings forth revolutionaries who come from the collective consciousness of the race to set the order right. You see, if you look at this thing from another point of view, we have literary geniuses, we have had poetic geniuses, we have had scientific geniuses, we have had spiritual geniuses, all tending to raise the race from a lower to a higher standard. The spiritual geniuses towards a higher spiritual standard. The artistic geniuses, the great musicians, the great painters towards a higher aesthetic standard. The scientists towards a better knowledge of the cosmos and how that knowledge can be put to use to give more leisure and more facilities and a better life to human beings. Similarly, we have had also political geniuses, but these geniuses have often been revolutionaries and they worked with instruments of terror. The knowledge of Kundalini will now show us that all these categories of men, the spiritual geniuses, the geniuses of science, the literary geniuses, the artistic geniuses, and the political geniuses, they come through the evolutionary impulse of the race to raise mankind up and up on the ladder of evolution by placing new ideals before the sight of man and also new forms of government and new social structures. Research on Kundalini will once for all make it clear that at every rise of the race, a better form of social and political order would be needed. So that would save bloodshed. Therefore, what I say has a very important significance for our politics also. Politics, our educational systems, our social systems have to keep pace with our evolutionary progress and would need a change at every rise. They have to become more and more humane, more and more liberal, more and more democratic and popular. Power has not to be vested in a few hands, nor wealth in a select few, but all this must be divided and distributed and used in a way that every human being has an equal chance to rise up on the evolutionary scale. Therefore, it is absolutely necessary that we make research on Kundalini, because that might save mankind from global wars, from annihilation and from bloody revolution that have been a very sad feature of our past history.
Thank you.